All right, hey, here we go. We're going to finish this thing off, and you can tell maybe that I've done quite a bit of work on it. I'm going to move my camera just a little bit. There we go. Um, there's several things to note here that I have done and what to do to really finish it off. Okay, you can tell that I've done more work on this, and I can just going to explain some things that I went over yet last time, but just as a reminder. Things like undercutting. Remember, get way under there. Really make it look like the bottom of his butt, or the underside of his leg really wraps underneath. I'm going to bring this one back out too in a minute. You can see how far this one got undercut underneath him over there. Okay, really make sure to do that. And also with the arms and legs. So you can see you can really see down into his armpit right there. And right in there. Really get down in there and separate out those parts, and it'll make it look much more like it's sitting on top of the dome rather than just kind of blend it in. It'll look like a separate piece, but it's really stuck together nicely. Some of the details. When you do that, when I got like the toes, let's say, okay, you have to hold on to the foot while you do some of that work. Okay, we're just splitting the toes first. Then we can use the side of a tool and kind of round off the toes. And when you think about toes and fingers, there's a line here, yes, but there's also a line on the underside if you can see it. So if you notice, I have kind of a line going here, an indent, and it goes around the top. And I kind of lifted up the piece and did a little bit of that line underneath as well. That'll make it look much more natural, and you will like it a lot better. All right, a few other things. I did some other relief sculpting. So remember, relief sculpting was this part right down here, where you drew a line, and then you took off the clay underneath. That can happen in a lot of other places as well. I did mention I did it with the cheek. I drew a line right here, and then I took some clay away right there a little bit, and then kind of, blend it with a wet fingertip. I did it on the eyeballs. Check this out. So that was one piece of clay. I just drew a line right there. Make sure you can see that I drew a line like with a pencil, indented it, and then I took a paper clip and just kind of went peel, 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 and let that stick out a little farther. And then I just took a pencil and I just drilled a hole for the little pupils. Same thing happened on the beak. See how the beak, this underside looks like it might actually kind of fit underneath the top part of the bill. With the same kind of thing, I drew a line, and then I took some clay away from the bottom to make it look like, or to make it actually the top part of the bill stick out a little farther than the bottom. And I also took a little bit, this bottom bill was a little bit bigger. I just kind of gradually, actually I think it was with a paper clip, you can just gradually kind of saw through there. You can't break it off too soon, too fast, because it'll break the clay where you don't want it to break. And what else did I do afterwards? I showed you this, how to get that relief sculpting. And then I drew another line right here to kind of get where that fleshy fold, that fleshy mass might happen. And then I took a paper clip and just kind of rounded that off. Another thing you can do, let's see that better. There you go. Another thing you can do, anytime you have arms and legs and things that kind of squish together, everybody has these little fleshy folds like that. Those right there. Okay, wherever it happens to be. It happens in elbows and knees and armpits. And if you notice, I put one right here. And if you think of it just as a Y, just like a little peace sign, just let one mark come out and you kind of branch it off and like a little Y shape right there. And that helps make it look like it more naturally comes out of the body. There's another one on that side, right there. It's just those little details sometimes that really make these sculptures look like they're a little more polished and professionally made. You notice some texture here too. I'm going to talk about that. Um, a couple other things. Let's see, what else did I do? Oh, that's basically what I did, but I just did it in a few more places than I just described. A dry paintbrush often helps you kind of get rid of some of these crumbs that hopefully will just fall right off if your clay is leather hard, to get them out of your way. If you wind up with little bits of tool marking textures, don't worry, I'm going to show you how to get rid of that today in this video. A few other things. See all these crumbs that are kind of falling here? Now you want to start saving those. Save them, and I have a little water container that I started to save some yesterday. See those little dry crumbs? I'm going to save those, and those will be really good to use for your next assignment because we're going to make slip, and a little bit of water, and we mush that up a little bit, and it's going to make kind of that paint. You saw that stages of clay, right? Really, really wet clay is slip. So I'm kind of saving those. I'm brushing them off onto my table and saving them in a little pile, and I'll put them in that cup. Another thing, along with those crumbs, now when you hold this, really be careful. Don't just pick it up by the head, okay? You're going to find that you get a lot of crumbs on the rim of your pinch pot. No big deal. Just turn your paper clip to the side and just kind of trim those off. Because they might fall off later, but I'll do more of this in a little bit. But so you can trim that off, maybe use a wet fingertip to kind of really smooth off the rim area. Now that I have it upside down, it reminds me of something else. You must, with a pencil or a paper clip or something, very clearly carve your name. And make it nice and big and kind of deep. I'm just going to put my last name in here. Again, if you draw on the clay, it will go away in the firing. You need to really carve your name into it. Let that dry up a little bit, and you can shape. You can brush away the little crumbs that stick up. Also, you need to put your period number. I'm just going to put a number 2 here. But you put your period number. That'll help us see whose is whose. Okay? And I want you to put your first and last name. I'll do that just as a model. First and last name. Let's see. It takes you just a moment. And don't be afraid to really carve into the clay. Remember, this clay has a good little thickness to it, so you can carve kind of deep. Okay, really make it clear like that. No initials, no nicknames. Make sure it's a name that we know that you go by for school. So when we want to get things back to you, or when we need to evaluate them and grade them and all those kinds of things, we know whose we're looking at. If there's no name on it, you will not get credit for it. It's just impossible to tell whose is whose. And remember also, you want to hang on to your drawings too, because that's something that you will be handing in as well. All right, so one thing I did discover after I finished the last video, this paper clip is like magic. This side really works well to get in there and draw some lines, but this looks just like works just like a professional trimming tool that we would use normally in class. So if I wanted to do a little touch up right there, if I wanted to trim some off, you just kind of go like that. Use the round end to trim off some sharp edges. You can use this tool to also, let's see if you can see this, right in the toes right there. So I can get in there and just kind of go boop, 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 that way and this way to start to just gently round off those toes. All right, so this is a good one. Also, what I just did like a few minutes ago, I remembered how to make some of these tools. I just took a smaller paper clip, or you can use a big one. Let's see if you can see this right. There we go. So I just took a small paper clip, I opened it up and kind of bent it so it became kind of a loop like that. And then I put down just some old colored pencil or any kind of pencil, And I just took some masking tape and just wrapped it really tight. So I can get in there now and use, and I should have told you before because I just completely forgot about it. You can use these tools. I just wrapped this one a little bit tighter so it's a little smaller. If you want to make some custom tools, I think it's a little easier to hold this tool back from a little distance. But if you don't make these, I did 90% of this, 95% of it without these tools. Okay, but if you want to make some tools like that with paper clips, they really work well. All right, let's go to textures. Okay, it's really going to be a good idea to have a couple of different textures happen. And I'll show you a couple samples. Here's some kind of the smooth texture of the blanket up next to some texture like on a carpet possibly or outside. It's a really good idea to have one or another texture here. My chicken is going to be smooth, so I'm going to have one texture here to indicate the straw coming out of the nest, and down here this texture could just be like the ground or dirt or something like that. And I'll show you how to think about that. This texture, this has kind of wavy lines going side to side to indicate water compared to the smooth up there. I think there's a little bit of bumpity lumpity texture underneath the grass on that one. So different textures are a really good feature, and I think will help your grade as well. And plus you'll like it better. So all I'm doing here on the nest that he's sitting on, I'm just taking a pencil and just kind of going flick, flick, flick. And I'm not doing it super thick. And you want to make sure the texture gets way underneath his leg right there. Start way up next to your character. And I can just do it. I'm going to go way up underneath his belly here. Make sure you can kind of see that. Way up underneath his belly. And I'm going to, since there's going to be another texture down here, I'm going to let my texture kind of disappear out toward the tip. Kind of some pre-planning here. Hang in there with this video. I still have a couple more tricks to show you. And I'll finish this texture after I make the video. Now, I found a Phillips screwdriver, just kind of one of these ends of it, to make this texture. And when you make these textures, guys, really dig in. Don't just make a little line on the surface. You really need to make some of that clay fall off. And I'm just randomly kind of, it doesn't matter if I change directions, it's all kind of mixed together. And I'm going to go all the way down to the edge. And again, I won't do the whole thing. Part of this, I mean, you can do this if you had a screw or a nail. You could use the head of a screw or a nail and do something almost exactly the same. That's a great little kind of irregular texture to make. I could mix and match between all of these. I could use a regular screwdriver and kind of just flick it right off of there. And then after it dries even a little bit more, you can brush away those little shavings that are sticking. Okay, so that will really help. Now, the last thing I want to tell you is, well, no, not the last thing, sorry. Any little details that are rounded, you want to get in there and make sure they're kind of rounded. Any part, like here's a good one right here. Let's see that? If you can see that, there's a little bit of a sharp edge right there. Okay, it doesn't look very natural yet. Okay, so I'm going to just turn my tool to the side a little bit and again, hold on to the tail while you're doing this. I'm just going to kind of trim that off. So instead of looking like it's square, you know, like the edge of a piece of wood right here, it's rounded and it will look much more natural and much more kind of realistic. And as I'm just flicking away at a couple of these crumbs, I want to let you know something else. Your sculpture really should be able to live on its own without any color or paint or glaze. You should be able to see everything that you want to have seen, which means you are not going to paint on the eyes. You're going to make the eyes. You're not going to just paint on that cheek right there. You're going to carve it and do some relief sculpting. Okay? That's the idea, because there's a chance we won't glaze these with color, just depending on how the pandemic goes and whether you come into school or not, third quarter. All those things we don't know yet. So you really want to make sure your sculpture lives without color, and you can see all the parts, like kind of like what you're seeing here. All right, now two things. We're going to polish this thing off. There are some little telltale signs of tool markings. First, I'm going to brush away all the crumbs that I can brush away, and I'm just going to work right here. I'll do the rest later. Brush away, brush away, brush away, brush away. If you wind up having, oh, I forgot one more thing I'm going to show you. If you wind up having a smooth texture and it's nice and big like that, just wet a finger and just give it a good firm kind of polishing. Okay, there's some little tool markings right here. Really give it a good kind of firm polishing and wipe that away. You should not have water dripping all over the place, but a little bit of water helps with that. When you need to get into some areas, like in little detail areas in between feathers and things like that, I will use a paintbrush with a little bit of water. So I dip my paintbrush quickly, and then I kind of tap off some of the water. I'll even take a rag and let some of the water disappear. And then, again, hold on tight to this guy. Then you can get in there and kind of give it a little scrubbing, a little wiping back and forth. I'll even get into some areas and kind of twist this around a little bit. And it kind of smooths out many of the tool markings. And it kind of gives it that really nice polished look. And you won't be able to tell where any tool markings were left behind. A little more water. Just kind of tap it onto a paper towel or a rag. See, and again, water should not be dripping all over the place. It kind of just stays right there. I'm going to kind of brush back and forth in the toes a little bit, and it just kind of rounds things off really nicely. And you can apply a little bit of pressure. If you have delicate areas, make sure to hold on to them or have a little lighter pressure. But again, if you have large flat areas like on this head, I can just quickly use a finger and just kind of wipe it, and give it that kind of address there. Now, I don't want to lose this texture, really, but I might do just a little bit of wiping, just to soften it, so it doesn't really look like a tool carved it, but it just looks like it more naturally happened. Same thing down here. I might take just the tiniest bit of water and just kind of go back and forth over it a little bit. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm just kind of softening it. And I'll put a little bit under here as well. All right, one thing I forgot to tell you. Oh, this is a really good one. If your character has clothing, so I'm going to show you Patrick here again. See how Patrick has pants on right there? And it kind of looks like he's sitting down inside his pants. Over here, you can see where it's kind of sticking out. That's super easy to do. Do not make a pair of pants and put it on. No way. This is way easier. And you have to pretend that this is Patrick's butt right here. Okay, so I'm going to take just the tiniest bit of clay, and I'm going to do, whoops, where is it here? And this can happen for a collar, like my collar right there. It can happen for a sleeve, the end of a sleeve, so it looks like the arm is going inside of a shirt. And I'm going to take this off, so it doesn't matter. So if you take and score a little area, and you would do that like around his whole belly if you're going to put a shirt on him. Make sure to score it so it's really scored. And in my other hand, I've been making a little teeny coil. And this does not have to be all one coil. You can apply 3 or 4 coils around his belly. I'm going to add my water. And you want to, this I should have shown you first. You want to do this before you do all that other stuff I just showed you. I just forgot. Now I'm going to go off camera. I'm just going to take this little piece of clay. I'm going to dip it in water real fast. Just dipped it in water because it's really small and you can't score that, but you do want to score this surface. Okay, it's just going to put it right there. Give it a little push. And then you're going to blend it going down. Blend it going down so it kind of disappears into this area. Sometimes I'll take a dry or ever so lightly damp paintbrush and use that to help me do that final blending right there. Then I could do another one. I could make my way all the way around, and I'm just doing a small patch of it Sometimes I'll take the handle of a brush and use that because it's smaller than my finger, and use that kind of as a blending tool. That works really well. So that could be a sleeve. It could be, see, it kind of is automatically sticking out, and it makes it look like, or that could be a little pocket. You know, that's kind of that kind of thing as well. All right, I need to take that off though. I'm going to take my trim tool and just slice it right off of there. And I will, there's going to be some texture here and everything anyway. All right, so hopefully that gets you the idea of how to finish things off. Now, super important, do not let this dry out. You need to, I just dip my fingers in water. You need to sprinkle some water inside of a bag and keep this leather hard. I'm going to put 2 bags over this so it does not dry out at all. Okay, that is super important. If you let this dry out, and if it starts to turn a lighter color, it's going to be really fragile, and you don't want that to happen. Any little bump will make it break. It's much sturdier if you keep it just that little bit of a cool to the touch, and enough so you could still carve on it if you wanted to, but keep it leather hard, no matter how long you have to hang on to it at home. And we're trying to figure out a way for you to bring it to class, bring it to school, and we'll let you know how to bring it to school so we can get it fired for you. But again, don't forget your name, first and last name. And I like to take a dry paintbrush and start to brush away the little crumbs. You have to imagine that your name is part of the artwork. Okay? And before I finish, I'm going to clean out my lines. And I'm going to take a trim tool and kind of trim all those little things of clay kind of sticking out so it looks nice under there, so we can read it easily. So name and period number. You must do that or it's not yours. I promise. Okay, I hope that clears things up for you. And take your time, do your best work. Remember, don't let it dry out. If you need to, kind of give it a little brushing of water each time before you cover it back up in between sessions. That was a long video. Thank you for hanging in there with me, and we'll see you next time.